The story kicks off as the Abyss, a magical forest gone rogue, threatens to devour Noel's hometown. The Abyss forms when the air gets too thick with mana, linking the human world with the demon realm, known as the Void. And tonight, it's hit level 12, which is bad news because that's when the big boys creatures called Lords show up for dinner. Noel's grandfather, Brandon, once the baddest seeker around, known as Overdeath. Yeah, with a name like that, you know he means business, gets ready for battle. He grabs his old weapon and mutters about never thinking he'd have to use it again. Classic action hero vibes. Brandon tells Noel to hide in the shelter, promising that help's on the way. But Noel isn't buying it. He knows that help means Brandon's about to throw hands with the Lord solo. Before he heads out, Brandon gives Noel that trademark Overdeath confidence, asking if he's forgotten who he is. Overdeath, he reminds him, a name that strikes fear into everything with a pulse. Brandon swears to protect Noel no matter what, walking off like the action star he was born to be. As Noel watches him leave, he knows the old man's ready to face whatever nightmare crawls out of the abyss. In the shelter, Noel's nerves are fried. His mind races with every worst-case scenario imaginable. The moments drag on until, eventually, he can't take it anymore. He steps outside and finds Brandon legendary. Unbeatable Brandon gravely wounded. Even the mighty Overdeath has limits, it seems. Brandon, despite literally being on death's doorstep, takes the moment to drop some seeker wisdom on Noel. This life's a tough one, kid. You fight. You win. Sometimes you lose. But death? He's always hanging around. He then hits Noel with the million-dollar question. Knowing that, you still want to be a seeker? Noel, doing his best to keep it together, nods with determination. I'll follow the same path, he says. Proud, Brandon tells him that being a seeker isn't enough. Noel has to become the strongest. He makes Noel promise to surpass even him. With a fierce resolve, Noel swears he'll do just that. Brandon chuckles because of course he does and tells Noel he loves him before passing away, leaving Noel to scream his heart out in the night. Fast forward 2 years, and Noel has kept his promise. Now a full-fledged seeker, he leads his ragtag team into battle against monsters like he's playing 4D chess, while everyone else is stuck in checkers. After slicing and dicing some monsters, the team starts dissecting them. Noel breaks down some vampire trivia. Lesser vampires can't use magic, but their queen can pop out mini vampires faster than a magician with a hat full of bunnies, each strong enough to rip an ox in half. As they strategize, a vampire lunges at Noel, but Tanya saves him with split-second timing. They consider going straight for the queen, but Noel pulls a big, hold your horses moment. He points out that their C-rank squad should focus on the spawns first if they want a snowball's chance in hell. The team knows they wouldn't stand a chance without Noel's guidance, even on a B-rank mission like this one. Noel reflects on his talker role. It's all about buffing the team, making them stronger. Talkers, often called the weakest class, get laughed at, but Noel's got a few tricks up his sleeve. Of course, that's when the vampire queen makes her grand entrance, spewing poisonous gas like she's auditioning for a villain role in a superhero flick. Panic spreads as fast as the gas, and the team immediately knows they're toast without Noel's buffs. Lloyd and Walter race to protect him, but amidst the chaos, Tanya takes a hit. Without Noel's buffs, the others can barely hold their own. Desperate, they shout at Noel to get it together. But Noel's had enough of being underestimated. Fury boils over as he tells his team, "Don't you dare look down on me," and draws his weapon, ready to show them what a talker can really do. Activating his tactician skill, he boosts the team's abilities by 25% like a strategic mastermind. He orders them to dodge an incoming attack and uses his battle voice to ramp up their stamina and mana recovery. Tanya throws up a barrier around the warriors, and the fight rages on. But just as things seem to be under control, more monsters start pouring in. Tanya's nerves get the best of her, so Noel uses his pure support skill to calm her down. Setting a timer for 74 seconds, Noel takes charge. "I'll handle the small fry," he declares. "You focus on the big one." With perfect precision, he directs every move. He stuns the weaker creatures and preps his magic gun, the only anti-beast weapon a talker can wield. His ice bullet freezes most of the demons, but one slips through. Now, Noel's down to his last bullet, with just 43 seconds left on the clock. It's do or die time. Noel's brain kicks into high gear as he calculates that the beast will reach him in precisely 23 seconds, just enough time for a hero moment. With seconds to spare, he relays orders to his slightly clueless teammates to target the main body. Barely dodging the beast's attack, Noel smirks as his brain-dead comrades finally get their act together and attack. Tanya, bless her heart, is amazed that they actually pulled off the win, but freaks out when she thinks Noel got hit. Turns out, she worries too much. Noel's timing is as flawless as his ego. The spawns freeze as expected, because of course, Noel's plan accounted for that. The mission wraps up in 74 seconds, right on schedule, leaving his teammates in awe and joking that Noel might be a little too good at playing with fire. As they tease him for his daredevil moves, Noel's mind drifts to a childhood memory of his grandfather. As a kid, Noel hated being a talker and wanted to be a badass warrior like his granddad. But the old man, ever the wise one, reassured him, promising that his true talent would shine one day. Now back in the present, Noel's more determined than ever to surpass his legendary grandfather. Yes, even as a talker, the job everyone says is the weakest link in the Seeker world. He takes a moment to explain how the capital of R thrives on magic and technology derived from beasts. Seekers are its protectors, admired like rock stars for keeping the abyss at bay. Later, while the team digs into their well-earned meal, Noel reflects on how, at 15, he'd started recruiting companions because, let's face it, a talker can't survive solo. Walter, with a belly full of pride and booze, is busy flaunting their $5,000 reward. Meanwhile, Tanya and Lloyd are already plotting their next big move. Noel, ever the schemer, silently notes they could use a scout but chooses to focus on gaining experience with the current crew. Things take a turn when a slightly tipsy Walter accuses Noel of being a bit too obsessed with money. Walter teases him, saying a seeker should care about heroics, not gold. Cue Noel's mental eye roll. He's reminded of something his grandfather once told him: "You need money to stay alive, kid. Forget being labeled greedy. People who call you evil are just broke." Noel smiles to himself. Classic grandpa. In the present, Noel shrugs off the money digs, but Walter, who has clearly had one drink too many, keeps pushing, turning the conversation into a full-blown argument. Noel, not one to back down, throws a jab at Walter, calling him out for relying on his age to command authority. Skill is what matters, not wrinkles. This fires Walter up, who accuses Noel of staying safe during fights while others take the real risks. But Noel just grins and keeps taunting him. Tensions rise until Walter threatens to end Noel's life. Noel, in typical fashion, coolly accepts the challenge. Thankfully, Lloyd steps in, reminding everyone that they're supposed to be a team, not a reality TV drama. After dividing the cash and realizing they only net $2,500 each, Tanya's disappointed with the payout. Lloyd tries to calm her down by explaining that tough jobs like this don't come around often, but Noel, being the ambitious one, notes that as independent seekers, they're stuck doing second-hand jobs. He throws out a wild idea: why not use their $100,000 savings to start their own clan? Lloyd, ever the voice of reason, points out that they need $200,000 to even consider it. Noel, with his usual bravado, offers to cover the extra $80,000 from his personal stash. Noel argues that forming their own clan is the only way they'll stop being stuck in the C-rank rat race. Lloyd's hesitant, worried they're too young and inexperienced, but Noel fires back with a reality check. When exactly will we be ready? Waiting around won't change a thing. Experience comes from action, not sitting on your hands. Walter, who's been skeptical all along, is slowly swayed when Noel points out that their looks and youth make them valuable assets. In Noel's world, being a seeker isn't just about skill, it's also about branding. Baby. They could get sponsorship deals, contracts, the whole 9 yards. Walter, ever the simple guy, perks up at the idea that being good-looking might actually get them better treatment. Noel even reassures him that despite his flaws, Walter's got the face to help the clan's image. Walter, feeling flattered and already imagining the fame and fortune, signs on, even throwing in a crude joke about using his status to attract women, earning him a well-deserved scolding from Tanya. With Walter now on board, Noel turns to Lloyd, waiting for his verdict. Lloyd, visibly shocked, hears Noel drop the bomb. If they don't agree to form the clan, he's out. Noel's got a dream, after all, to surpass his legendary grandfather over death and become the greatest seeker. No pressure, right? Lloyd, after much thought, finally agrees. He knew this decision was coming, and they might as well embrace it. Tanya, still skeptical, questions his choice, but Lloyd reassures her. They all agree to reconvene in 2 days to finalize their plans after they've had time to recover from the booze and the bombshells. As the group breaks up, Tanya stops Noel, but all she can manage is a simple goodbye. The next day, chaos erupts when Walter rushes to tell Noel that Lloyd and Tanya have betrayed them, leaving Noel wondering what his next move should be. Noel skims through the letter, confirming what he already suspected. Lloyd had sunk all his money into a disastrous business scheme a few years back and now found himself knee-deep in debt. Naturally, Lloyd did what any upstanding party member would do. He swiped the group's funds and bolted from the capital. Noel couldn't help but laugh at the irony. Lloyd, the shining beacon of nobility, resorting to a not-so-noble escape plan, priceless. Getting back to business, Noel asks Walter when and where he found the letter. Walter explains he heard about a sweet job opportunity the previous night and rushed to Lloyd's room first thing in the morning to tell him. But by the time he arrived, Lloyd had already ghosted, and the innkeeper handed him the letter. According to the innkeeper, Lloyd and Tanya skipped town around 8 p.m. the night before, just before the gates closed. Normally, Noel and Walter wouldn't have figured this out until well into the afternoon, meaning Lloyd had bought himself some extra hours. It's 9:30 am now, so they're at least half a day behind. But with gate records and the fact that Lloyd probably left on foot, Noel figures they can easily catch up with horses. Walter, ready to bolt out the door, gets a reality check when Noel reminds him this isn't a simple game of catch and retrieve. Lloyd and Tanya didn't just steal money, they betrayed the party. If they catch up, it could turn ugly fast. And even if they win, the cash is already spent. But Noel isn't about to let them slip away without paying for their treachery. After suiting up, Noel takes Walter to a local tavern. Walter, clueless as usual, wonders why they're there instead of on the road. Noel doesn't bother explaining, knowing Walter wouldn't grasp it anyway, and just tells him to follow his lead. Inside, Noel grabs everyone's attention with an announcement. 2 members of his party have stolen their money and run off. He offers a 2 million fill reward for anyone who brings them back alive. Walter, on the verge of a meltdown, asks why Noel just broadcasted their dirty laundry to the entire tavern. Noel smirks. He's not interested in sharing. He's looking for a specific someone, and this is just the fastest way to smoke them out. Sure enough, the lightning bite party bites first, eagerly accepting the job. Noel gives them all the details about Lloyd and Tanya's escape, and several other parties quickly join the hunt. Still, Noel hasn't spotted the person he's waiting for. Enter the shady guy. He approaches Noel, clearly knowing something, and this is exactly who Noel had in mind. Outside, the man spills the beans. He saw a couple leaving town last night who matched Lloyd and Tanya's description. But his party isn't exactly hero material, so they can't take on Lloyd and Tanya alone. Noel, already 5 steps ahead, offers the man 1 million fills instead of 2. Predictably, the guy tries to haggle, but Noel has him pegged as too broke to say no. The shady man caves, and Noel tells him to meet at the south gate with his party. He also instructs Walter to wait there while he finishes some last-minute prep. Later, at the gate, Walter is still buzzing with anxiety. He nervously asks if Noel is really prepared to face off against Lloyd and Tanya. Without missing a beat, Noel assures him that he's more than ready to take them down, no mercy, no second thoughts. Walter can't believe how cold Noel is toward people they worked with for years, but Noel drops a bombshell. He had contingency plans for betrayal from day one. In fact, he even has a plan for Walter. Trust, not in Noel's playbook. Meanwhile, in a remote village, Lloyd is trying to convince Tanya they're in the clear and can rest easy. After all, who would be petty enough to chase after them for money that's already long gone? Turns out Lloyd underestimated just how petty Noel can be. The next thing Lloyd knows, Noel's standing behind them, squad in tow, ready to capture them both. Lloyd reaches for his sword, but before he can make a move, Noel freezes him and Tanya in place with a single word. With Lloyd trapped, Walter starts yelling about the betrayal, but before he can throw a punch, Noel steps in. He's got a few burning questions for Lloyd first. Lloyd's in hot water, but Noel's already got him figured out. He knows the party's savings are long gone, and now he's curious where the vampire hunt reward money disappeared to. Lloyd, ever the genius, admits he spent that too. Noel, half smirking, asks if Lloyd blew it all on another failed get-rich-quick scheme, but Lloyd confesses it went to pay off his debts. The way Lloyd's dodging the truth makes one thing crystal clear. He's not just bad with money, he's a gambling disaster. Before Lloyd can try apologizing, Walter snaps, screaming at him for wasting all their hard-earned cash. Lloyd, realizing his innocent act won't fly, goes full victim mode. Gambling. Too much fun to resist. And besides, wasn't it their fault for making him the leader? Noel's done with Lloyd's amateur-level excuses, so he kicks him square in the face and stomps him down. After all, Lloyd was the one who wanted to be leader just so he could fund his gambling addiction. Lloyd's bleeding, begging for mercy, but forgiveness isn't in Noel's vocabulary. Tanya jumps in, pleading with Noel to spare Lloyd. Noel, ever the champion of gender equality, says fine, she can take the beating in his place if that's what she really wants. Using his powers, Noel compels Tanya to spill the truth. Turns out, she's just as guilty a bigger gambling addict than Lloyd. Once she snaps out of the truth spell, Tanya yells at Noel for using mind control, claiming it's illegal. Noel calmly points out that it's perfectly legal when dealing with criminals like her. Case closed. Then, the hired mercenary demands his payment. When Noel asks for a minute, the guy doesn't take it well, grabbing Noel like he's about to be stiffed. Bad move. Noel, with a grandpa-approved punch, knocks him out cold by hitting him right above the heart, an old family trick to stop someone in their tracks. Enter Finocchio Barzini, a flamboyant slave trader with a flair for the dramatic. Noel's plan: sell Lloyd and Tanya as slaves to make back the money they stole. Tanya protests, but Noel reminds her that jail time would be far worse mining until death sounds less appealing than taking a gamble on slavery. Barzini offers a measly $6 million for the pair, but Noel's no pushover. The price keeps climbing as Barzini complains, and eventually, Noel secures $15 million with a clever scheme to make Lloyd and Tanya seem like luxury slaves. Impressed by Noel's negotiating skills, Barzini even offers him a leadership role in his organization, but Noel declines. As the deal closes, Tanya tries a last-ditch effort, pleading with Walter, knowing he has a soft spot for her. When Walter refuses to help, she hurls insults at him, leaving Walter reeling, questioning all his life choices. Noel, on the other hand, tries to comfort Walter, telling him that the seeker life is full of backstabbers. But Walter's had enough and decides to quit. Noel respects his decision, wishing him well as he walks away. Though his party's fallen apart, Noel's not giving up. He vows to rebuild the Blue Beyond stronger than ever, still chasing his dream of becoming the best. And that, dear viewer, wraps up episode 2. Subscribe or risk being left in the dark for the next one.